OTAN, Outreach and Technical Assistance Network.
Today, we're going to talk about outcomes in Canvas and using them to track mastery for our students. And there have been some updates with outcomes and rubrics in the recent months with Canvas. So we're going to go over some of those updates as well. So when we're looking at outcomes, these allow you to measure and track mastery and proficiency within your course. So it's beyond just giving a grade, but it gives you that look over time at a student's learning and progress towards mastery. So they're essential for our programmatic assessment and as well as our accreditation in the adult school realm, where we are looking at how our students are mastering a skill or a concept. So it gives you a way to link your course level work to that broader institutional or department goal, course goal. And again, it tracks student progress over time for both the individual learners as well as for the entire class, which will give you, as the instructor, data in moving forward, whether it's into the next semester or in a new offering of that course. So we can see the progress towards mastery in the Learning Mastery Gradebook, which I will show you. This Learning Mastery Gradebook is kind of like a dashboard where it allows you to quickly see the overall progress of your course, of all of your students, or individual student progress. So it's a great tool so that you can see who's on track for reaching mastery, who's excelling, and who might need to be targeted for intervention or support. We have the ability to have account level outcomes. So your Canvas administrator can import account level outcomes. And I'm going to put a link in the chat. These are some outcomes that OTAN has put together that cover ELP standards, UDL guidelines if you're using Canvas for professional development. We have our CTE standards, anchor standards. We have our standards for career and ready practice, our CCR reading anchor standards, writing anchor standards. We have speaking and listening, language anchor standards, our reading foundational, and our standards for mathematical practice, and our ELP standards. So each tab, we have listed our standards in a format that we can, at the account level, import those into a Canvas instance so that they are available for all of your instructors in that instance. So I'm going to come back over to the main page. And I'm going to put a link to this Google Sheet in the chat. That way you can access it, and then say you wanted to download the speaking and listening anchor standards. So I'm going to come over to that tab, and I would come up here to File, Download, and I would download a comma separated values. And that will download the file that we will then, in a few minutes, upload into our Canvas instance. So those are account level outcomes. So they are created at the root or the sub-account level, and that allows your faculty to then simply look for those standards and bring them into their courses. And it keeps that consistency department-wide or institution-wide and provides those standards to all of your instructors. So in order to use outcomes, they need to be attached to rubrics. So I'm going to cover rubrics a bit in this session as well, because by linking your outcomes to a rubric, you can not only provide detailed feedback, award points that will go into the traditional gradebook for an assignment, but also track that progress towards mastery in our Learning Mastery Gradebook. So we do need to understand rubrics in order to attach outcomes to our assignments, quizzes, discussions, anything graded. So we have an outcomes index page in every course. So I'm going to jump over here to my course, and over here in my course navigation, down here is our outcomes index page. And you can see that I already have our college and career readiness standards have been imported into my course. They're in a group. So when I expand that group, you can see I have the language anchor standards inside my college and career readiness group. So those have been imported for me. When you go to your, not for me, by me earlier, when you go to your outcomes index page, yours may be blank. But it is on that page where you can create outcomes. You can manage the outcomes that are already there. Again, we can create groups for organization. And this is also where we can import those CSV files, and we can manage the, can't manage the rubrics on this page. That's a typo, but we can manage those outcomes and look at how they're aligning to the different course assignments that we have. So again, this is a screenshot of that same page where you can click the create button to create an outcome group. Let me go back. This is to create an outcome, individual outcome. Down here is where you can create new groups down at the bottom. So in this screenshot, there are several different groups. If I jump over here to my index page, my outcomes index page, you can see here I have the button to create a new outcome. And because I have my college and career standards group selected, it will create that outcome within that group. Or I can create a new group underneath, so I can nest it, or I can create a new group just underneath my course name, which is for this course is webinar examples. So if I created a new group here, and I'm in a, say I'm in a culinary arts, and so I want to create a group called culinary arts. So I'm going to create that group. And you can see when I select the group, there's no standard, or there's no outcomes in here right now. So as long as I'm in that group, when I click on create, it will create an individual standard within that group. I can also import into this group, since it's selected, the standards from the CSV file. So we're either creating an outcome, or we're creating a group and creating or importing into that group for organizational purposes. So again, with importing outcomes, you would select the import, and it will import those outcomes directly into your into the group that you selected. And if I just come over here to the CSV file, what we're looking at is the name of the standard. This is the name of the group. And then these are the outcomes that will be within that group. So by importing, you can also automatically create those groups. This is the title of the group, and these are the titles of the different standards. Here is a description. Here is a friendly description. This description is for your purposes when you're looking at accreditation. This is for our students so that they understand what that standard is assessing. And then the display name, and then the calculation method, which I'm going to go over in a little bit. So all of these settings are imported on the CSV file, but when you come in to create a new standard or outcome, these are the different things that need to be included, which are automatically in that CSV file. So let's create an outcome. So again, I'm in the culinary arts class, and so I'm going to create an outcome that has to do with demonstration of, let me find it because I'm just going to do some copying and pasting, knife skills. So we're in a introductory to knife skills, and so I'm going to create an outcome, and this is an industry standard. So I'm going to enter that industry standard. That's the name that I'm tracking, but that doesn't make sense for my students. So my friendly name, this is going to be of knife skills. Okay, so that's the friendly name that they will see. And so the standard description, I'm going to put in here. And I'm going to actually just paste the text. I didn't want that table. So it demonstrates proper knife skills according to industry standards, focusing on cutting techniques, safety, and accuracy. So I can put in a longer description, maybe the different types of cutting, whether it's julienne or dicing, those kinds of things. And again, there's the friendly description for our students in case this is a little bit education speak that they may not understand. And then we come into proficiency rating. So this is how you're going to assess that progress towards mastery. So if I come over here and we take a look at, so this is what we're doing right now. Let me find, here we go. So the calculation method is essential. So it is how Canvas will determine the student's mastery over time. So I'm assessing their skills and I want them to improve with practice, right? So for this outcome, I would probably use decaying average because that's going to look at your skills over time. And they're expected to improve, and it weighs more recent assessments more heavily than the ones in the past. So if I come over here to my outcome and I have this calculation decaying average, you can see here that between two assessments, the most recent assessment will get 65% and the first will get 35. And if I assess it multiple times, more than two times, say I assess it 6 times, I put this outcome on 6 different assignments. It will assess assignments 1 through 5 at 35% and assignment 6 at 65%. I can also change this. So say I want that final assessment to be maybe not more than half, but 50%. Or maybe it's going to be more, it's going to be 80%. So you can see that it changes. So if I have my 6 assignments, they score a 1, then a 4, but then they go down to a 2, then up to a 3, a 5, a 3, and a 6. This 6 is going to be factored at, in this case, 80% of the score, while the remaining will be factored at 20% of that final score. So that's our decaying average. The N number of times, those are the number of competencies that are required successfully in order to reach that mastery. So let's take a look at that. So that is N number of times. So in this case, if there are however many assignments, they must achieve mastery at least 5 times. And mastery is set up here. So if I kept these proficiency ratings, they're going to exceed mastery at 4 points. They're going to reach mastery at 3, and they're going to approach mastery at 0, 1, or 2, right? So it's going to look at all of these scores. And if I say that they need to reach mastery within all of these assignments at least 5 times, this student met it. So mastery again is at 3. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So they met mastery or exceeded mastery 9 times. So their final score is exceeding mastery. So it takes that and looks at the number of times that it reached that or exceeded that mastery score. We also have the most recent score, and that most recent score is great when only that final performance matters. So maybe you have the several check for understanding quizzes or assignments, but only that final attempt counts towards mastery. So you have a quiz where you've given 4 attempts and they take it all 4 times, it's going to keep that 4th score. If they only take that quiz twice, it's going to keep that most recent score, that 2nd score. So that's great when you want them to practice and have the ability to retake something, but once they meet mastery, that needs to be that last score. And then the highest score is useful when you want to give students multiple attempts to achieve mastery. And as long as they hit mastery, it's going to keep that highest score. And then average, that gives you the holistic view across all assessments. And for that particular outcome. So if I've given this knife skills over 10, it's going to show me that over these 10 assignments, what is that holistic, that average that the student was able to reach. So those are our calculation methods. Coming back to our assignment here. So I'm going to go back for this one, and I want it to be that decaying average because I want to see their most recent assessment gets that higher weight. You can change the proficiency rating titles here. You can also change the points. Um, so, and then indicate which one is mastery down here at the bottom. You can also delete if you don't want this many. And then I believe you can add as well. Let's try. Yes, with the plus sign. So you can add additional ratings if you need. Don't make it too complicated. Now, this is going to be saved under my culinary arts standards, which is that group that I made earlier. So I'm just going to double check, and I have everything that I need in there. And so I'm going to click on create. And so now you can see that I have culinary arts. Let's refresh and see if it shows up. Yes, so there it is right there. And you can see that this is a course level standard or outcome. If I come over to my college and career groups, these are at the institution level. So these are ones that my Canvas admin imported into the Canvas instance or account or sub-account. And then I can go and find those to bring them into my course. So if I know that I want that something's been uploaded by my admin, I'm going to click on find. Here are my account standards. Those are the ones that have been uploaded to the Canvas account by OTAN. And you can see that I have all of these. So say now I want to bring in some standards for career ready practice. So these are our career ready practice standards. These are all at the institution. I can click over here and add just those that I want, or I can add all 12 outcomes in this group into my course. If I wanted to see what these all are, I'm going to move this over, and I think I want my speaking and listening anchor standards. So I'm going to click over here. There are 6 outcomes, and I'm going to go ahead and add all outcomes into my course. It might take a minute. And while that's working, we'll come back over here. And so like I said earlier, a rubric is required to attach those outcomes to the different assignments, quizzes, discussions, anything that's graded. Okay, so these were all added. So I'm going to click on done. And here we have let's move this over so I can see. Yep, there are our speaking and listening standards outcomes, and they've all been imported into my course. So now I can use those. So there's 2 steps. If you're the Canvas admin, you're going to upload that CSV file. If you are an instructor, you're going to then, once those have been uploaded by your Canvas admin, you're going to go find the ones that you want and import the ones that you want. So if you're the Canvas admin, or if you are an instructor and you have that CSV file and you want to upload it to your course, you could do it either way. But if I click on import, notice here that it needs to be a CSV or a JSON format only, and I can choose that file from my downloads folder, which is this one right here. These are our speaking and listening standards, which I just did. I just imported, so I'm not going to import them again. But you would just open and it would do the same process and import them into your course or into your account level. And here's the format that you need. So if you don't have the ones that we've done here at OTAN, this is how you're going to format that CSV file. Okay. So now that we have our outcomes, again, either by importing from the account or from a CSV file, or creating them from scratch, or finding them from the account level. Now we have our outcomes in here. If you click on alignments, this will tell you what assignments have been attached. So you can see here that with Language Anchor 1, I have 2 assignments that are using that outcome. So I can expand that to find out which of those assignments are there, and there's links to them, so I can go and take a look. This one is attached to 3 assignments. So that's on my reflection, a reflection, and a reflection. So you can see how these are all aligned. You can also see that I have 15 outcomes, the coverage, and the average alignments per outcome. This is not a course with students in it, so that my numbers are very low. Yours will be higher once you have students being assessed. And this will just more data for you to use, 21 accessible artifacts, which are your assignment submissions. And again, these numbers change as students complete those assignments. So here's the one that I added earlier, doing the proper knife skills. Right now it's not attached to any assignments, but we're going to do that by adding a rubric to an assignment and pulling in that outcome. Okay, so rubrics. Rubrics are the assessment tool. I'm sure you've used them, but in Canvas, you can actually attach them to assignments, quizzes, discussions, anything that's graded. It helps streamline that grading procedure and keep it consistent with all of your submissions. You can import, just like we did with outcomes, you can import and align your rubrics from previous courses, or if you have a department that's created a rubric and it's imported at the account level, you can import those rubrics and attach them to assignments to keep that consistency across different teachers, but the same course or the same skills assessment. And again, you can align specific outcomes that are already created and pulled into your course. So how we are going to use them. So again, it has to be on a graded item, assignments, quizzes, discussions, as long as they're graded. It doesn't have to count towards the final score, but it does need to be something that will go into the grades tab. And down at the bottom, you see that plus rubric. Oh, and again, make sure that when you are creating your assignment under the submission type, you have online or on paper. That may have changed. That might be one of the updates. I think you can add rubrics to the other assignment types as well. So I'm going to come into my modules, and I'm going to come down here to this chop, dice, and slice. And you can see here I have 2 assignments, a level 1 and a level 2. But I'm going to go ahead and come into my level 1. And here is my assignment goal, the requirements. So they're going to choose a recipe that requires the use of at least 3 different knife cuts, and then prepare it and document their progress using pictures or maybe a video, and then write a short reflection about the recipe and the 3 cuts and how they did, what was the challenge, what was the one thing you learned, and then they're going to submit their reflection and their documentation of the process. So I want them to really know what is going to be assessed. So I'm going to go ahead and I can either create a rubric, or if I've already done this before, I can find a rubric. But let's go ahead and create a rubric. And so this rubric name, we're going to give the name Knife Skills. And this is going to be either a scale or just written feedback. So we're going to do a scale, and then I'm going to do points, and the rating order is from high to low, and the scoring is going to be scored. I can create or check don't post a Learning Mastery Gradebook, but because we're going to add outcomes, we're going to go ahead and post that to the Learning Mastery Gradebook, and I'm going to draft a new criterion. So my first criterion is going to be the knife skills. So they need to have at least 3, right? So here's the criterion name, and I'm actually going to take the criterion, 3 required cuts. And I'm going to have this exceeds will be that description so that they know exactly what I'm looking for. So our mastery will have this description. Oops. So they will hit mastery as long as they have all 3 required cuts with good uniformity and precision. If they are near mastery, then, and again, I'm using the same terminology that I used with our outcomes. So, they do kind of go hand in hand, and they might need improvement or they're below mastery for fewer than 3 cuts, and there's no evidence if they don't submit anything. So maybe my rating name I want to be a little bit different. So instead of exceeds, we're going to say this is exemplary. And then instead of mastery, they're going to show proficiency. Proficient. And then instead of near, they're developing, right? So this doesn't have to be, and then below, I don't want them, that's kind of negative, so I'm going to put needs improvement. And then, of course, no evidence if they don't do the whatever was asked in the rubric. Because this is going to be their grade in the traditional grade book, this might make more sense. And so there's my knife skills criterion. I can add another criterion, which might be the recipe. So I'm going to draft a new one. And again, it has all of the traditional ones. I think I'm going to exit the rubric editor, and I believe I can come over here and duplicate this one so that I have the same terminology, and I'm just going to change the criterion name and the descriptions. A little less typing. So I'm going to duplicate it, and instead of knife skills, recipe execution and final dish. And I can put in a description, or if it's within the criterion name, it's optional. So as you can see here that it has the rating names that I changed in the last criterion, so I don't have to do that. But in an exemplary one, I'm going to change the description to be appropriate for this criterion. And then in order to be proficient, I'm going to change that description. And this not only helps the students, it will in understanding exactly what they need to do to reach that proficiency or that exemplary. It also helps you in grading to make sure that you're consistent across all submissions. Okay, so I'm going to save that criterion. So I have 2 criterions, right? But I also, actually, I could put in more. So maybe I want to have a criterion on how they documented their process and then their reflection. And I'm actually, let me put in the reflection one because I want to show you a great tool that is new. So this is going to be the criterion reflection. So that will be a reflection on the process, challenges, and the learning. Okay, so let's quickly put in our descriptions for the different criterion. And then we'll save it. And then we will also add the outcome or the standard that we're assessing in our Learning Mastery Gradebook to see their progress over time. So that can be another criterion. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to come over and pull in the one that we added earlier, which was the knife skills. So you can see that's this one right here. This is the one that we pulled in earlier. I'm going to go ahead and import that. And you can see here that this one is locked. So an outcome cannot be edited because it is going to be attached to multiple assignments and rubrics. And so in order to keep that consistency, you can't edit the outcome here. If you wanted to edit it prior to any submissions, you could do that in the outcomes index page. Now you'll see here that the rating scale is 15 and everything else. Oh, nope, scoring we want scored. There we go. So you can see here that it shows the different points. So it's 16 points possible. These are all editable. This one is not because it's an outcome, but I can view the criterion here. So I know what is being assessed. So you can draft new criterion, you can pull in a criterion from an outcome. Let's preview what this rubric looks like. So when our students look at it, it shows the knife skills, the recipe execution, the reflection, and our demonstration of knife skills. And so as you're grading, all you have to do is choose which score they get, but all of that other information will be included when the student looks at their graded assignment. So this, and you can give specific feedback comments on each criterion so the students know and understand what they need to work on, as well as the outcome. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Create. And so now you can see that this assignment has this rubric knife skills. I can preview it here. And you might know it more in the vertical. You have different ways of viewing it, but it's all the same information. If you've been using rubrics, this is the traditional view. Again, you can see all of the data, the assessment points. You can leave comments. But if I were to come in here and click on exemplary, it's going to automatically add that score and show the students which one they received, as well as any comments I may leave. So that is the benefit of rubrics. But you can also, so we created a rubric here. Now that one is attached, I can go in and edit it. Just remember that if it's attached to several different assignments, it will edit it for all of those assignments. If you've already assessed a student, it will actually break that apart from the original rubric and create a copy of it. So just keep that in mind. I can delete this rubric if it's not the one that I want to use, or I can replace it with one that I've created previously, and it will swap it out and use that. You can only attach one rubric to an item, an exhibit. Now this is new, this enables self-assessment. Let me come back over here to my slides to make sure. So we did find a rubric, we attached it. This self-assessment is great and it's new, and this allows your students to go through the process of self-assessing their work through the rubric and show you where their learnings or their struggles were. So when you check that and the student opens up the assignment, they will see this self-assess button down at the bottom next to either the submit or new attempt button. So then they can go and fill that out. So if I come back over here to this assignment, I'm going to enable self-assessment. If it's grayed out, it means that you can't, because it's already been assessed. So you can't do, you want to make sure you do all of these things prior to students actually completing the assignment. But what does this look like for a student? So I'm going to come into student view. Here's my first attempt. And I can come down here and I can choose text, media, I can upload something. So text is using the rich content editor. I can upload a video that maybe I took with my phone. I can upload a document. I can create, if you have Studio, I can create my assignment using Studio. And then here are some more. But you can see over here, this isn't ready yet because I haven't submitted anything yet. So I would come in as a student and I would, I did something wrong because there's unlimited attempts. Well, let's just try something. So this is a test of the self-assessment. Okay, so now I can submit my assignment. So You can see I'm in progress. There are my details. There's my answer. And so I'm going to submit. And now that I've submitted it, because I've been given multiple attempts, I could do it again, or I could come over here and self-assess. And that will pull up this rubric. And then I can say, I think I did pretty well on my knife skills, but I need more practice on the julienne skill. And then I can come over here to recipe execution and final dish and say, it turned out pretty good, but it could have been better. And then on my reflection, I think I did pretty well on my reflection. And did I demonstrate proper knife skills? I probably could use a little bit more, but I think I'm mastering that at this point. Now you can't see this because my screen, so I'm going to zoom out because I'm on a laptop so that I can see that submit button back here. So that's my self-assessment. I've given myself 13 out of 16. And then that is something that my instructor will see. So if I leave student view and I come into speed grader as the instructor, it doesn't show the student self-assessment because I couldn't see the save because my screen is so small, and in student view that pink bar hides it. But up here you would be able to see how the students scored themselves. But as the instructor, I can view this rubric, and after viewing the students' submission, I can say knife skills, yes, they were proficient, and then give a comment. The recipe execution, that was proficient as well. And they did a proficient job on the reflection. And just by clicking those three and the demonstration, I'm going to say near mastery, right? So my score was 11 points. If the student actually saved there, it would show the student score as well. So, but you can see how that will keep consistency, and then I can give some overall comments and click on submit assessment. And then this is what the students will see when they come in to their gradebook. Now, if I wanted to see this rubric in a different view, I can do the horizontal or the vertical, just like we saw in the other place. Okay. Let's come back to here. So that's that self-assessment, which is fairly new, and I think it's a really powerful tool for our students. So let's talk about the Learning Mastery Gradebook. I am going to come back to my course. Actually, let me show you this first. I'm going to come back to modules. And you can see that that was my level 1 assignment. But now I have a level 2, right? So this is going to be a different assignment. And it's not, but just say it is. And because remember, I'm assessing their progress over time, I'm going to find that rubric that I used in the last assessment, and that's this one right here, and it's in my webinar course, but maybe it's something then in one of the other courses that I'm in. So you can pull in rubrics from other courses. And so I'm going to use that same rubric and add it to this assignment as well. And so you can see here, so it's now on part of this, and the due date has passed because I created this. So I'm going to come in and change the due date. So we're going to come down here and we're going to assign it to everyone. And we're going to make it due January, let's say January 7th when we come back from break 2026. So now that it's an assignment in the future, I can check that. Nobody's assessed it. Maybe because there was self-assessment. Anyways, let's come in and edit the rubric. So you can see I have those skills and the outcomes. And you see here that I can't modify this because we used it on that last assignment. So if I do make changes and I save it, it will save it as a new rubric. So I'm going to exit. I need to figure out why this enable self-assessment isn't there. It may be because it's already been used on a previous assignment. But I didn't have to redo that rubric. I could pull that in. And then the Learning Mastery Gradebook. So when you're looking at your grades tab, this is your traditional gradebook where it's, just point-based, and depending on your gradebook setup, you might have groups. You can see I have imported assignments, which is 0% of the grade, and then here's the totals. But what I really want to see is how they are progressing towards mastery. So I'm going to change my gradebook view to Learning Mastery Gradebook. Now, again, this is a test. I don't have, these aren't real students, but this one that I just did in the test student view, you can see I got a 2 out of 3. But when I go to complete, let's come back to the modules, and as a test student, I'll complete that second one. So this is the one that we just attached the rubric to. So I'm going to view as a student, and I'm going to submit. This is going to be my second knife skills assignment, and did something, reflection. Okay, so I am doing this second assignment that has that same rubric. I'm going to submit it. And then as the instructor, when I come in to Speed Grader and grade that assignment, so I'm going to view this rubric, and I'm going to say this time the knife skills were exemplary, the recipe was still proficient, the reflection was exemplary, and they are meeting mastery of the knife skills. So I'm going to assess that. And when I come back to the Learning Mastery Gradebook, you'll see that that changed because now it is part of 2 assignments. So this will constantly give you the overall view of how the student is doing towards this outcome over time. So mastery is set at 3. This is a calculation method of the decaying average. And so not quite at mastery yet, but it gives you that overview. And if I wanted to come in and drill down even further, I can click on this test student and I can see how they're doing on the last graded items. So you still have all of that information. And if I come into the skills, coming back to my course navigation and down to my outcomes and my alignments, and I want to see that skills. So you can see here all of the assignments that this is attached to, and my the different information about it. So really powerful data that helps you assess your students' progress towards mastery and skills, whether it would be, your trade skills or language skills. And this is a view of what it might look like where you're looking at an ELA standard, an outcome that was manually put in by the teacher. Here's another standard, but you can get a good view on who's exceeding, who's at mastery. And then if you take a look at below mastery or well below, James might need a little bit more assistance than some of the other students, but it gives you that holistic view of your students and how they are progressing towards mastery. And that, in a nutshell, is outcomes and rubrics. I encourage you to come into outcomes and experiment in importing. You also have the rubrics index page where for this course, these are the different rubrics that I have. I can come over here and edit, duplicate, copy it to another course. If I'm not using it anymore, I can archive it so it's not in that list. And then you can also take a look at any of those that might have been archived. You can create a new rubric here if you're not ready to put it on an assignment yet, but you know you're going to use it. You can create your rubrics here so that you don't have to do that when you're creating your assignment. Or I can import a rubric. I can download this template, write all of my rubrics for the semester, and then upload it. So you're importing it that way. And you can also say I want to download my language standard and my reflection rubric. I could download those and upload those into other courses, maybe share them with your colleagues. So there's a lot of really great functionality with outcomes and rubrics. And that is outcomes and rubrics, rubrics and outcomes. And I hope you take advantage of the outcomes that have been created by OTAN. So that link was in the chat. And if you have any questions, you can always come into Canvas and go into Global Announcements. And in here, I have Canvas office hours. So if you'd like to meet with me, you can click on this link and book some time with me. I have time throughout the rest of the year through June. So, and that's it. So thank you very much. And I hope you enjoy playing around with outcomes and rubrics.